I'm Ezra Levant. It's May 31st, and you're watching Battleground. Welcome to Battleground. My name is Ezra Levant. I'm the president of the Rebel.media. We're based in Canada, but we have viewers around the world. The United States, Australia, and the UK, where for about a year, Tommy Robinson himself was our lead reporter. We have other talent in the UK as well, including Jack Buckby, and Katie Hopkins joined us in January. Tommy left us earlier this year. It was an amicable parting of the ways. Tommy's an independent-minded person. I think you can detect that. But we still follow him with great interest, and I was troubled deeply by the events of Friday, where within a course of short hours, he was arrested, taken to a drumhead trial, not given a chance to speak to his own lawyers, given a public defender, and in a minutes-long hearing, an angry judge condemned him for contempt of court and sentenced him to a 13-month sentence in the Her Majesty's Prison in Hull, outside of Leeds. The whole matter took a few hours, and I would never say it was a kidnapping, because it's the United Kingdom, and that's crazy talk, right? Well, if it happened in Venezuela, if some political citizen journalists were picked up outside a court for doing journalism and 5 hours later were sentenced to prison for 13 months, we would say it was a political prisoner. We would probably say it was a kidnapping. It's too much. It's too much to say that in the UK, I think. Just a reminder, I know we've been showing it all week, but I'll just show it once. Just a reminder of Tommy Robinson on the street outside the courthouse in Leeds. And I want to say something because I think there's been a false report, fake news. There's been people who said Tommy was discussing the details of the case that was being heard inside the court at that moment. That is not true. It is true that Tommy recited the names of the 29 accused, or at least some of them. That is true. But he was merely reading from a publication on the BBC, the state broadcaster. Tommy was not discussing evidence in court. He was not, because he had not been in court and did not purport to know what was being said inside. Those who say Tommy deserves to be sentenced for contempt of court, those who say he was risking the integrity of the trial, are factually wrong. If you watch the 70-minute live stream that Tommy was doing outside the court, he did not refer to what was being said in the court. He talked in general about the political and religious and criminal and police ramifications of the industrial scale rape gangs in the United Kingdom. But he did not say anything that, to my ears, came even close to jeopardizing the integrity of the case. So it's important, if you hear people saying Tommy was jeopardizing the trial, it wasn't about Tommy, it was about the trial, push back. Ask them, what did Tommy say that jeopardized the trial? They do not have an answer because he said nothing. And more to the point, the judge who condemned Tommy to 13 months in prison did not even review it. Just because we have an hour to talk, and I want to show people who have not joined us earlier this week, let us show, just for a minute or so, the video of the moment Tommy was arrested. Again, if this was in Venezuela, you would call this a kidnapping. If this was done in one of the Banana Republic regimes in Central America, if this were done by Vladimir Putin to a citizen journalist who was irritating the government in Moscow, you would call this a kidnapping, would you not? Let's take a look at that tape one time.
The content of what I'm streaming, I'm being arrested for breach.
Are you arresting him?
Been arrested for breach of the peace. You've all watched this. You've all watched this. You've all watched this. You've all watched this. Can you get me a solicitor? Can you get me a solicitor?
Can you just turn off your live feed?
Can you get me a solicitor?
Just turn off your live feed, please.
Yeah?
Do you understand what I just said to you?
No, can you explain it again?
Arrested on suspicion causing a breach of the peace.
What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean, officer? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean?
I've been told that the police are doing the case.
Not at all. I've never said that.
George, that's the information I've
That's
got.
all
I'm
the
inciting.
information we've
I'm
got.
inciting
Can
people.
you not
I'm inciting
through his
people.
video and
How have I
and watch
incited
it? He
people?
hasn't.
This is free speech. This is where we're at. You're not even allowed to. Look at this.
Look how many people.
Man, what you try and hide? Do you know when you do this?
These are normal working men.
More people.
The only sharp things are lighters.
Just let them
do this.
More people are going to watch this now than ever. This is ridiculous, lads. Do you feel right what you're doing here? I haven't said a word. In fact, someone laid their hand and assaulted me outside court.
Yeah, exactly.
Other people swore at me and threatened me about my mother, and here I am being arrested for saying nothing.
I'm threatened to behead
I've done
me.
nothing.
You've not said anything about
What are
it.
you arresting you for, Tommy?
Breach of the peace. Apparently, I'm inciting on my video. Can you please, George, get me a solicitor?
Yeah.
Because I'm on a suspended sentence, you see. So
He has actually done nothing wrong.
You can sort anything like that.
That was the last moment Tommy was ever seen free. It's funny sometimes when you don't know when you're meeting someone that will be the last time you see them. I mean, I hope to see Tommy again, but it's terrifying to me that he will spend 13 months in prison if his sentence is not set aside and reviewed. I think it ought to be. What are we doing? We're doing what we call a super chat. That's the term that YouTube gives for a live stream chat with comments in real time on the side. The chat is the comments you can type in. As you can see, it's free to do, and there's hundreds of chatty comments as it is. But to make it a super chat, if you chip in a couple of bucks, your comment is put in a bright highlighted color, and in some cases it's pinned to the top. And if you're wondering where that money goes, well, thankfully it comes to us as the publisher. Google pays us it in the form of an ad payment, and we use it to help cover our costs. So thank you to Pete Henderson, who chipped in $9.99. Thank you for that. If you have a comment, Pete, you can append that to your super chat, and I will read it. But let me tell you what we're going to do today. On Monday, we went over the case. We gave the details of the case because our friends in the United Kingdom were still subject to a publication ban. We here in North America were not. On Tuesday, we talked about more details, including the fact that the publication ban had been lifted. We had instructed a lawyer named Daniel Burke, who had worked with us and Tommy before. He was the lawyer we retained for Chelsea Wright, the young woman from Sunderland who was targeted by a predator. On Wednesday, we talked about other matters, including about the precedents for contempt of court. I showed you a variety of cases taken directly from the court website in the United Kingdom showing how other people in the United Kingdom, when they break court orders, either have no custodial sentence whatsoever. I showed you the case of someone named Jake Cook from Salisbury who broke the law 3 times. He broke bail, he broke an order, he did an original offense. And the judge said, well, you're a good egg and you say you're getting your life back on track because you're going into the music business, so no custodial sentence. And perhaps more appropriate comparison is the case of George Galloway versus his former female assistant, Aisha Ali Khan. The two of them are embroiled in civil litigation, not criminal litigation. And a court imposed not 1 but 2 orders against Miss Ali Khan not to talk about things in public, and she breached those orders not 1 time but 26 times. She went to court. She was given time to have lawyers come with her, and she did get a custodial sentence. She was sentenced to 12 weeks in prison, which is not nothing. But breaking not 1 but 2 court orders 26 times got Aisha Ali Khan just 12 weeks in prison, whereas Tommy Robinson is now being sent there for 13 months. So that's what we've talked about so far this week. But today, finally, Nigel Farage, the former leader of the UKIP party and the great champion of Brexit, today he weighed in on the Tommy Robinson matter on his show on LBC, which is a leading radio show in the UK. It's a talk show. I'm going to show you the full clip that he uploaded to the internet today. I saw it on Twitter. And then I'm going to break it into 3 different parts and we'll talk about it. But first I see a couple more super chats, so let me just read them. Someone with the fun nickname, there was a French Toast nickname. There we go. French Toast Mafia. Hey, that's an organized crime group I'd like to join. French Toast Mafia. I don't know what that means, but it sounds delicious. That looks like they're from Australia, if I'm reading that right. Says, I would understand if he had genuinely jeopardized the verdict. However, I don't think he did. Do you agree? Why do you think this happened? Well, as we discussed yesterday, contempt of court does not require that you broke the integrity of a trial. It just requires that you could have. And that's what the judge said. The judge did not say it disrupted the trial. It said could have, put it in jeopardy, and thus he was sentencing Tommy. My objections, and I'm not going to go into them in detail now because we've covered them very well this week, is that this was done so quickly he didn't have a chance to talk to his own lawyer or an expert lawyer. And I assert again that what Tommy actually said for 70 minutes in his live stream that was the subject of that arrest you saw did not actually talk about what was going on in the court. It didn't. It just didn't. Tommy didn't know what was going on in the court. He was talking in generalities. It was like he was giving a political speech. It's outrageous. I saw another super chat come in. Let me find it. Yeah, here it is from Soham Roy. Save Tommy, free Tommy, support from India. Well, thank you very much. It's nice to have support from India, and I guess that symbol is a rupee, if I recall the name of the Indian currency. So that's very nice of you to chip in. Thank you, Soham. Tommy has supporters around the world. What's so interesting in my visits with Tommy in the UK is to see how multiracial Tommy's support is. He has a friend named Mohan Singh. I don't know if we can call up a picture of that, Hannah or Justin. I don't know if you know, I don't know if you've ever met him. He's an incredible fellow who's obviously Sikh, as the name suggests, and he walks around with a sword and flowing robes. He's quite something to behold, and he is, I don't know if it's his full-time job, but he is on the warpath against Muslim rape gangs because, as you may know, although the primary target of Muslim rape gangs is white British girls, they also target Sikh girls. Did you know that? And Mohan Singh has become an ally of Tommy in this regard. In fact, we should try and track down Mohan Singh. I know that's a common name, Hannah, so if you can't find it, that's fine, but he's an incredible man. So it's not surprising to me to hear that Tommy has friends in India. Tommy has friends of every background. Tommy has many Muslim friends, you should know. Tommy repeatedly says it, as Geert Wilders does also. His quarrel is not with Muslims. His quarrel is with Islam, the ideology. I think I see a new super chat. W. McMaster says the judge even admitted he hadn't seen the entire live stream. Exactly. What, was he too busy? Was he too rushed? He's about to send someone away to prison for 13 months. And he couldn't spare an hour to actually look at the evidence, the substance upon which he was purportedly sentencing Tommy. That's outrageous to me. Another comment by Kevy Cat 84, £5, thank you. Since when has it been racist to disagree with someone's faith or religion? That's all Tommy does. I disagree with all religions. Does this make me racist? Well, you must understand that the word racist has been hijacked, and it now means basically, shut up. Shut up, he explained, is a joke. Racist, he explained. Well, that's becoming a joke, and it's too bad because I think we ought to condemn racism, which is judging people on irrelevant characteristics like their melanin. I don't think that's an appropriate reason to judge someone. I would rather judge someone, as Martin Luther King said, by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. Islam is not a skin color. There are Muslims of every race. And in fact, as Tommy has pointed out, a great number of Muslims in prison are converts. They convert to save themselves in prison. It's you convert to Islam. Just in North America, for example, where I'm more familiar, you go to prison. Sometimes you join a gang for protection. Sometimes those gangs are based on ethnicity. It's true. In the UK, you join a gang for protection. That gang is based on religion. If you become Muslim, if you convert to Islam in the prison, you will be protected by the biggest gang in the prison. That's why there's so many converts in prison. I have one more super chat here that I missed that my producers just emailed it to me. Tom Youngjohn, $2, says Revolutionary War in the UK. I hope not. I hope there will be no revolutionary war because the UK is free or should be free. It just needs to assert its freedoms. The revolutionary war that is actually going on in the UK is the jihad by those who wish to overturn its liberal democracy. In fact, it's democracy at all. If you understand what Sharia law is it's the concept of the caliphate that should dominate, which is they don't believe in nation states ruled by man's law. They believe in a theocracy ruled by Allah's law. All right, enough preamble. It's already 12:15 and I haven't showed you what I want to show you today, which is Nigel Farage's comments on LBC. I also should tell you that just by coincidence, today I interviewed Gerard Batten. He's the member of the European Parliament for London, and he is the leader of the UKIP party. See, Nigel Farage was the leader of UKIP for so many years, and he was such a charismatic figure, and he's got that enormous grin, and he loves to be photographed holding a pint of beer outside a traditional British pub. It's just, he was the perfect man for the times, wasn't he? He was such a great leader of UKIP, and he was successful in Brexit. And then he did a victory lap. He's in semi-retirement. He's still active, of course, in the European Parliament, where he gives great speeches. The other day, he was grilling Facebook's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, very effectively. We see Nigel Farage on this side of the Atlantic. He loves going to New York and Washington, D.C. because he's chummy with Donald Trump. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's great. They have a similar spirit. They're both sort of troublemakers. They're both outsiders. And in a way, the Trump train was the American equivalent of the Brexit. So they're in sync with each other. I see one more super chat. I'll just read it before I show you the Nigel Farage clips. Stuart Oldfield says, you can almost smell the fear of our government. They can't understand how to regain their criminal control. Well, that's the thing, is the cone of silence that was placed over that court. One of the things that's most troubling to me about Tommy's live stream is that there's no one else there. There's no other reporters there. You have a trial. It was in Leeds. The case in question was, I think, in Huddersfield. 29 people in this rape gang, 27 men, 2 women, who colluded for years to rape children. I want to be clear, we're talking about raping kids in this trial as young as 11, raping kids again and again and again and again and again and again. Where was the other media? Where was the other media? That's why they had to shut up Tommy. He is the one leak here. He's the one guy telling this story. I was very proud to work with him when he was at the Rebel, and I admire his work as an independent. So Nigel Farage weighed in on the subject after having stayed silent for a while, and I can understand him staying silent for 2 reasons. First of all, for reasons of political sensitivity, and second of all, because in fact until Tuesday, the matter was subject to a legal publication ban in the United Kingdom. That ban is now lifted, and Nigel Farage had this to say. I think he had more comments to say, but this is what I could find online. Justin, would you please play the entire clip that Nigel uploaded to the internet earlier today?
Tommy Robinson has been jailed for 13 months for contempt of court. And to many people, this is absolute proof that we're moving into a police state, that something truly awful is happening. Well, you've got half a point, folks, but only half a one. Let's be clear. Tommy Robinson was under a court order not to interfere with the judicial process in any way at all. He chose, for reasons of self-publicity, and not to benefit anything that would help society. He chose willfully to breach that. He was warned that he was in breach of that, decided to continue. Frankly, the judge had almost no choice but to give him a jail sentence. So I think Robinson, frankly, was out there asking for trouble, and I don't think it was a very bright thing to do. Now, against that, let me just say that there does appear to be a very strong desire and willingness amongst much of the police and our judiciary to clamp down on people who make certain criticisms in society. And we are not dealing here with a level playing field. The whole point about religious freedom and tolerance is we should all be able to criticise and even mock each other. And I do worry that we're moving into a position where you can criticise some groups in society but not criticise others. And I think for those of you who see Robinson as a hero, well, OK, maybe he does stand up for his point of view. But believe you me, his imprisonment in this case is not heroic in any way at all. And that, of course, will surprise some of you. But let me just say this finally. The fact we weren't allowed to talk about this for several days because of reporting restrictions is just a nonsense, because the internet has been awash with it. And the reason is the legislation covering reporting restrictions came in 1982 when, well, hardly anybody even had a computer. Tommy Robinson.
There you have it. That was the clip of Nigel Farage on LBC, one of the large talk radio stations in the UK. Some interesting people on that channel. Katie Hopkins used to have a show there. Now she's with us here at The Rebel. Majid Nawaz had an interesting comment yesterday. And by the way, Justin and Hannah, let's get that clip from Majid Nawaz and we'll show it on tomorrow's show, because he had some great, actually, if you can find it, I'd like to show it today. Majid Nawaz is the head of the Quilliam organization, which purports to be a progressive liberal group of Muslims, and I find them convincing from what I've seen. I don't know them as well as Tommy does. Tommy actually worked with them a little bit. But from what I see, I like what they're doing. And if we can get that clip of Majid Nawaz, we'll show it today. And if not, we'll show it tomorrow. I want to dig into Nigel Farage in a second, but first I just want to read some of the Super Chats. How does Super Chat work? It makes your comments stand out. As you can see, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments coming by. I just can't read them all. I can't even look at them all. But when you chip in a few bucks, which goes to our costs here, our costs of our staff and our equipment, it puts your comments in highlights. So, for example, Mark Dandria chipped in $4.99 and said, "How's it safer in the Ecuadorian embassy over the UK?" Isn't that's a very clever point. That's a very good point, isn't it? What is happening in the UK to civil liberties and to journalism? I have my disagreements with Julian Assange. I felt that his leaking of confidential U.S. military secrets during the American war in Iraq jeopardized, for example, Iraqis who were supporting the liberation against Saddam. It released their names, their locations. It released confidential information about how the Allies were defeating IEDs. I had deep, deep concerns about Julian Assange and what he did there. But in more recent years, he has done what I would call journalism. Journalism that did not jeopardize national security in that same manner. The fact that he has been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy for years is something that I think we ought to talk about more. I'm not completely resolved on the matter, but you raise a very good point. For Britain chipped in £5. Thank you very much. I admire Anne-Marie Waters. Richard Ballantyne chipped in $20. Thank you. Love the show, Ezra, and David Menzies' videos. Why are people on the left so easily offended? Do you think their intolerance is one of the greatest dangers to free speech? I think they're not really offended. They're just faking being offended, because that's the ultimate card to play. Racist, sexist, Islamophobic, transphobic. It just avoids an argument. So I actually think that normal people speak normally in private, but then when they want to get into the public square, they fake being outraged over something. I think I covered off the Super Chats. Let's get back to Nigel Farage. Now I played you the whole clip that we had. I want to break it into 3 parts. And I want to show you where I think Nigel is right and where I think he's wrong. And let me say this again. I admire Nigel Farage very much. I think he was the man of the hour for the UK. I think without him, Brexit would not have happened. I think he was essential to its success. It has not completely succeeded yet, of course. The UK is still in the EU, and the Conservative Party is doing everything they can to slow walk it. It's been 2 years, by the way. So I admire Nigel, but that doesn't mean I can't disagree with him where I think he's incorrect. So we've broken the clip into 3 parts. Play the first clip again, and I'll give you my direct comments in reaction.
For 13 months for contempt of court. And to many people, this is absolute proof that we're moving into a police state, that something truly awful is happening, well, you've got half a point, folks, but only half a one. Let's be clear. Tommy Robinson was under a court order not to interfere with the judicial process in any way at all. He chose, for reasons of self-publicity, and not to benefit anything that would help society, he chose willfully to breach that. He was warned that he was in breach of that, decided to continue. Frankly, the judge had almost no choice but to give him a jail sentence. So I think Robinson, frankly, was out there asking for trouble, and I don't think it was a very bright thing to do.
I'm sorry to disagree with Nigel Farage because I don't want to disagree with Nigel Farage. He's so likable, he's so charismatic, he's such a good guy. He gave Britain and the forgotten people such a victory 2 years ago that it feels unnatural to contradict him, but I feel I must. He said several things there. He said Tommy was doing it for reasons of self-publicity and of no benefit to society. I disagree. I know Tommy enough that he is motivated by a deep, tragic concern for British girls. Now, for Britain in general and for British principles, but he is deeply psychologically wounded by the mass rape in his country. And he takes wounds to his countrymen as a wound to himself. I believe I'm not going to pretend I'm Tommy's best friend. I think I've met him between 5 and 10 times. And I've talked to him on the phone 100 times. I'm not his friend. I mean, I think I'm friendly, but I think I got the measure of the man. He is motivated. He's not motivated by money. He was doing this for free with the EDL, and then after the EDL, and he was with Pegida, and then when he was working in sort of home renos and doing this on the side, and that's when we said, well, forget the home renos. We'll cover whatever you're earning there. We'll pay you. Do TV all the time. Tommy's not motivated by publicity. Tommy can get on Facebook in a second and just tell jokes with his cousin Kev and get 100,000 views. Tommy was at that court because no one else was there. If the BBC was there, if Sky News was there, if Channel 4 was there, if the Times was there, and the Mail Online was there, and the Spectator and the Independent and the Guardian was there, Tommy wouldn't be there because there would be no need for Tommy. And they could do a better job than Tommy because they have hundreds of editors and journalists and photographers and reporters. Tommy is there because no one else was following the public interest. It wasn't self-interest. He was putting himself in the gap because no one the hell else was there. Don't say it was self-interest. It was purely in the public interest because nobody else gives a damn. And this is what Majid Nawaz said on the radio the other day, is that Tommy did this because no one else would. And by the way, Nigel Farage says, it wasn't that bright of Tommy. Let me say Tommy is smart. He doesn't have a university degree that I know of. But don't confuse going to university with being smart. Now, was it bright to get arrested? I suppose you could say self-evidently being arrested for 13 months is pretty dumb. But I think confusing, willingly accepting or putting yourself at risk with being dumb, courage and folly, I think are opposite sides of the coin. If you think what Tommy did was required and noble and patriotic, you'll call it courageous. If you don't, you'll call it folly. I want to disagree with one more thing Nigel Farage said, and I say this again with admiration for Nigel Farage. How could you not be admiring of him? He said Tommy broke the court publication willfully. That is plainly not true. Tommy was very careful. He did not set foot on court property, not even on the sidewalk and not even on the steps. Tommy said alleged rapist, not rapist. He took such great care only to read information that was already in the public domain from the BBC website. To say that Tommy willfully broke the rules is untrue. I know Tommy enough that he would not do that. Tommy knew he was in jeopardy because of the earlier suspended sentence. And because Tommy so manifestly was taking steps not to break the rules. In fact, there's one moment in the extended Facebook live stream where he asked someone, can I stand here? He's checking. For Nigel Farage to suggest that he was willful, that's not true. It's just factually not true. And that he was warned, that's not true as well. Who warned him? No one warned him. Suddenly 7 cops swarmed him. You saw the footage yourself. No benefit to society? Wrong. We've got that Majid Nawaz footage and we'll have time to play it. In fact, why don't we do that now? I'm going to show you the other 2 parts of Farage's clip and I'm going to go through it point by point, but I just mentioned to you in rebuttal to Nigel Farage saying this was self-interest and self-publicity. Well, sure, Tommy enjoys the publicity, but to say that's what motivates, like he doesn't hate it. Some people are camera shy. Tommy's not camera shy. But to say that's what motivates him is untrue. If Tommy wants just laughs or footage, he can do that in 100 ways. Frankly, standing outside a courthouse for an hour just killing time is not riveting footage. Let's play the Majid Nawaz clip. Do you have it, Hannah? Here we go.
For too long in this country, we, media, the establishment, society, the chattering classes, the liberal elite, whatever term you want to use, have ignored the issue of grooming gangs, of young, vulnerable teenage girls who have been victimized, drugged and raped and abused. Whether it's the Rotherham case or all the other cases that were replicated across the country, it is both the conclusion of the prosecutor in the Rotherham case, British Pakistani Muslim Nazir Afzal, or indeed the official inquiry into why it took so long for these young, vulnerable, underage girls to get justice. Both of those concluded that fears of racism prevented us from coming to the defence of vulnerable underage girls. Fears of racism meaning that the state was scared that it would be accused of being racist if it rightly arrested and prosecuted British Pakistani, largely British Pakistani Muslim men in their abuse of underage white teenage girls. And so from fear of appearing racist, there was a silence across the country as multiple cases of grooming gangs emerged up and down the country, as evidenced now due to multiple prosecutions, successful prosecutions, but sadly and unfortunately too late. If we hadn't all been silent, if we had all addressed this issue head on when it needed to be addressed, when it was time to address it, then the void would not have emerged for the populist agitators to fill that gap and become popular, actually, as a result of addressing what is a legitimate issue. They ended up hijacking what should have been the concern of every right-minded citizen in this country.
It goes on a little bit. You can find the whole thing online. I found that compelling, and he's sympathetic to Tommy. I mean, he and Tommy have disagreements. Tommy has disagreements. One of the reasons Tommy is motivated is he has a disagreeable streak in him. You can call that stubbornness or independent-mindedness, and that's why Tommy doesn't bend the knee. Too many Brits bend the knee. Let me read a few quick super chats. Tom Youngjohn says, better to use kafir than white. Kafir, I think, is the Arabic word for infidel. W. McMaster, thanks for chipping in $20. Talk about walking on eggshells. He makes it look natural. He left out almost every detail. I love Farage, but this was way off point. Reminds me of Ben Shapiro's comments on this willful ignorance. Look, Nigel Farage, for 30 years, 25 years, has fought to bring the UKIP into the mainstream, fought against things that would marginalize them. And I sense that he still has that instinct to avoid unnecessary controversies because he's controversial enough per se. And I sense that that is one of the reasons he's reluctant to fully embrace Tommy, because Tommy has prickles. Tommy is a convicted criminal on matters unrelated to politics. I think he has always been treated unfairly by the law. I think there were trumped up charges. I think he is harassed by the law. If you want an example of that to prove I'm not just making things up, in his last contempt of court case a year ago in Canterbury, they could have phoned him. They could have phoned his lawyer. They could have come by his house at 10 a.m. after the kids were in school. No, they did a 4 a.m. raid at his house with 4 cops, SWAT team style, just to freak him out and his kids out and his wife out. You don't do that. Why you raid a guy at 4 a.m.? If he's not a terrorist, you do that to get into his head and to upset his wife and kids. That's just one of 100 examples of the disproportionate and unfair treatment Tommy faces at the hands of the law. Oko Yamos says, but Tommy did not do anything to breach the court order, did he? The imprisonment has clear political motivations behind it, as far as I can see. Well, here's the thing. The judge didn't watch the live stream. So how would the judge know if Tommy did something wrong? Tommy may have pled guilty and said he was sorry, but what was he sorry for? We don't even know what the substance was because it wasn't vetted in court. Ian Baxter says Nigel Farage is a letdown in this instance. I'm afraid you're right. Now, I'm a super fan of Nigel Farage, but that doesn't mean I can't disagree with him. Just to get back to Majid Nawaz there. Went on a tangent, as I often do. It's 12:35. We got some time. Did you hear what he said? He said, we were all afraid to talk about these industrial scale rape gangs. He used different words. And Majid Nawaz is, of course, brown skin, Muslim, so he can say things that a white Brit would be called racist for, right? You can't call Majid Nawaz racist. He's got brown skin. You can't call Majid Nawaz Islamophobic. He's a Muslim man who runs a Muslim think tank. You could probably call him those things anyways. The far left will. But look at how plainly he put it. He said, we didn't do this. And he refers to the prosecutor in Rotherham, who is a Pakistani Muslim himself. And said this was ignored. This was swept under the rug. Everyone was afraid. Everyone was colluding. They would rather avoid being called racist than deal with a rapist. And not just any rapist, child rapist. And as you heard him there, because the establishment did not fill the void, it fell to Tommy to fill the void. So I take issue with Nigel Farage saying Tommy did it for reasons of self-publicity and of no benefit to society. In fact, that is the only reason Tommy did it, is because no one else did. No one else did. You know, maybe if UKIP did, the problem would have been rectified earlier. Now, that wasn't UKIP's purpose. Look at it, UK Independence Party. They had a very clear purpose. But where the Conservative Party? Even where's the Labour Party? You know, it's largely working class girls that are targeted. Where the hell's the Labour Party? They've been colonized. All right, so we played the first clip from Nigel Farage. We played a clip by Majid Nawaz that I thought was excellent. Would you not agree with me that that was an impressive statement by Majid Nawaz? I'm impressed by it. Okay, let's play the second element from, I've shown you the whole Nigel Farage clip. I've broken it into 3 parts because I want to address it point by point. Let's play clip number 2 of Nigel Farage.
Against that, let me just say that there does appear to be a very strong desire and willingness amongst much of the police and our judiciary to clamp down on people who make certain criticisms in society, and we are not dealing here with a level playing field. The whole point about religious freedom and tolerance is we should all be able to criticise and even mock each other, and I do worry that we're moving into a position where you can criticise some groups in society but not criticise others. And I think for those of you who see Robinson as a hero, well, okay, maybe he does stand up for his point of view. But believe you me, his imprisonment in this case is not heroic in any way at all. And that, of course, will surprise some of you.
Well, you heard him at the end there. Of course, that, of course, will surprise some of you. I think I'm detecting in our comment stream it does surprise people. Let me read a couple more Super Chats. Just by the way, what is Super Chat? It makes your comments stand out. There's hundreds of comments. If you want yours to stand out in a bright color and be brought to my attention, chip in a few bucks. Where does the money go? It helps pay the bills here at the Rebel. We have no government support, unlike the BBC or the CBC in our country. We're not a state broadcaster. We're 100% viewer supported. A couple Super Chats. Prairie Farm Girl chipped in 10 bucks. Thank you. Tommy is very courageous and is shining a light on great evil. Absolutely. Absolutely. Blair Anton, $5. Thank you. In an attempt to be seen as one of the most tolerant countries in the world, the UK is quickly becoming one of the most intolerant. Yeah, it's funny you put it that way. I think you're exactly right. It reminds me a little bit of Sweden, because if there's a place more progressive than the UK, it's got to be Sweden, right? Sweden is even more Islamified than the UK, and they're bending over so far backwards, their spine is shattered. A couple more Super Chats. Amber Powell, $2. You can disagree with Nigel. He's wrong here. Yeah, and I'm disagreeing with him politely and respectfully because I I admire him so much, and he will always be a hero for Brexit. That doesn't mean he's right on this one. Mark Chamberlain, £5. When freedom fails, the best men rot in filthy jails, and those that cry, appeased, appeased, are hung by those they tried to please. Well, that's, I think there's a lot of accuracy there. Okay, back to what Nigel said. He said there's a tendency among the police and the judiciary to narrow the scope of discussion, especially about talking about religious matters. Yes, he's right. But remember what I said, I'm not sure if I mentioned it today, blurring it with the other day. I know I've mentioned it this week. Daniel Pipes, who's the president of the Middle East Forum, has a list of establishment power centers that all by coincidence start with the letter P. So he calls them the 5P professionals. It's a good way to remember it, right? The police, okay, Nigel referred to them. The prosecution, Nigel said the judiciary. But there's 3 more P's, right? The press, right? And Nigel is the press and, because he's on LBC. The politicians, Nigel's a politician. And then Dr. Pipes adds the professors, and he also sometimes adds the priests, by which he means any religious leader. So look at what Nigel's done. He has accurately diagnosed a problem in 2 of the 5 P's. Police and prosecutors. Yeah. But you only detected 2/5 of the problem, didn't you? What about the press? Where are they? I noticed that they condemn Tommy in any pejorative sense they can to try and undermine the message. They attack the messenger to undermine the message. They always say ex-EDL leader. By what possible stretch is that relevant to these matters today, other than they're trying to prejudice their viewers against them? Politicians, tell me a courageous sitting MP who stands with Tommy. There's very few. I'll refer to Gerard Batten in a minute. He's the new leader of UKIP. And then, of course, professors. Nigel acknowledges that Tommy does stand up for his views, but says that's not heroic. Well, actually, I think that is the literal Greek definition of a hero. Someone who champions. A hero doesn't always win, but a hero champions his beliefs. It was heroic what Tommy did. You can disagree with it, but to sacrifice 13 months in prison for your beliefs, that's actually sort of dictionary definition of heroic. Let's play the third clip from Nigel Farage.
The fact we weren't allowed to talk about this for several days because of reporting restrictions is just a nonsense, because the internet has been awash with it. And the reason is the legislation covering reporting restrictions came in 1982 when, well, hardly anybody even had a computer.
Well, that's right, of course. Censoring things in 2018 is practically almost impossible. But that's beside the point. Let's say it was practically possible to have a publication ban. Let's say you could do it technologically. That's not the reason we oppose censorship, because it's unfeasible. We oppose censorship because it's morally wrong, not just because it's technologically almost impossible. And the same instinct that makes censorship so prolific in the UK is the same instinct that makes the other P's so wrong on this. Let's check the time. It's 12:43. Time flies. But I wanted to cover those things. What do you think? Do you agree with me that Nigel Farage, the great hero that he is, and the great friend to America, by the way, I've met him in Canada, by the way, too. Nigel Farage does come to Canada. In fact, I first met him when he teamed up with Mark Steyn in a debate about migrants at the Monk debates here in Toronto. He was very personable. He's such a personable guy. How are you not going to like Nigel? And that personality was an important reason that Brexit won. Doesn't mean he's right on this issue. I wouldn't say he's wrong. I'd say he's half right, half wrong. And I think it's a vestige of his ultra caution at UKIP, where he didn't want UKIP to be associated with ruffians. He didn't want them to have the same rap that the EDL or the, what's that called, the Britain First or the British National Party, I forget all the names of these parties that are called far right, hard right. Nigel was trying to avoid that, and I can understand why. But we can talk plainly now, can't we? And that Majid Nawaz video, I hope you'll agree with me that it was good. Let me check with the team. Have I missed some super chats? Okay, let me just see if I can catch up with the super chats. Here we go. Jason Derrick, Capitals or Vegas Knights for the Cup? You know what? You are asking the wrong guy. I follow politics like a sports team, not sports teams like sports teams. I am going to go with Vegas just because why not? A Cinderella story, you know. I mean, good for them. And you're playing ice hockey in the middle of the desert. How can you not root for that, right? W. McMaster, the Muppet Beaker Trudeau wink. I don't quite get that, but appreciate your support. And again, from W. McMaster, Tommy leaving EDL says it all. Well, I told you the story. I first met Tommy in the UK right after the Westminster Bridge terror attack. Tommy had been working with us before then, and he did an incredible video on Westminster Bridge. In fact, Hannah, can we scare up that video from Tommy Westminster Bridge? I just wouldn't mind showing people just when Tommy was really giving it to these other reporters there. We'll key up that video. This was the breakthrough video for Tommy with us. Tommy's had a career before us. He joined us, and this video, it took off like a rocket. Anyways, shortly after Tommy speaking truth to power on the Westminster Bridge, I flew to the UK, so I got to meet this guy, Tommy. And I deliberately chose a hotel as close to the Westminster Bridge as possible. I wanted to go to the bridge and see it. So I met Tommy at my hotel, which was right across from Westminster Bridge. And Tommy brought a friend. Okay, who's a friend? I didn't invite a friend. I didn't know he was bringing a friend. But he brought his friend, his best friend since grade school, happens to be a black man. And why do I tell you that? It's utterly irrelevant to every single thing, isn't it? So what? He's black, so what? Well, all these liars in the mainstream media who tell you Tommy's a racist. A racist, eh? Literally his best friend, who he trusts with everything. And Tommy, for good reason, doesn't trust strangers quickly. There's so many people trying to scam him or infiltrate, right? Don't tell me Tommy's racist. I've seen him and his best friend for 25 years. And one of the reasons Tommy left the EDL is because it was getting a tinge of racism to it that he could no longer support. Just for old time's sake and to remind you of Tommy's outstanding comments on Westminster Bridge, literally minutes after the terrorist attack there, here's a clip. Why don't we play just play this and I'll signal when we've heard enough. Thanks.
This isn't a shock to me. I don't understand people who are surprised by this. We've had 12 suspected terrorist attacks planned last year. If they would have been successful, you'd have seen shopping centres, you'd have seen aeroplanes, you'd have seen nightclubs, you'd have seen a war zone on our streets, similar to this, every single month. Then, and only then, might people realise we are at war. We're in war already. We have over 3,000 Muslims who are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Every week, costs a £9 billion a year. Yeah? We're following and waiting for them to do this. We have had 450 ISIS fighters been allowed to return to our country. They've gone and fought for ISIS. They've been in training camps. They've been beheading people. They've been raping people. And they're walking the streets of our capital city. They're living with us. Our government have failed us. Don't come out and act all strong on this, Home Secretary, Theresa May, because you haven't been strong. You've been weak. You've showed cowardice. Okay?
You're very quick to label this as a foreign terrorist attack.
Because my head is not up my arse. Yeah? My head is not up my arse. This is an Islamic jihad attack. The man that done this would have either been radicalised in a prison or he would have been radicalised on the streets of the UK with full knowledge of our government and our security services. They will know who he is.
Do you have information that no one else seems to know?
Yeah, mate, I have information that shows there was 4 terrorist attacks last week in France. 4 in France. There was 12 planned last year. Driving your car like this man has done is exactly what the Inspire magazine, which is Al-Qaeda's magazine, which was downloaded by 50,000 British Muslims last year. 50,000 British Muslims downloaded a terrorist manual in our country. 50,000. Not 10, not 20. 50,000 people who want to see exactly what you see there. That's what they want. They want war, they want death, they want destruction, and we keep on pandering like you just come out to me saying it's got nothing to do with Islam. It's got everything to do with Islam.
Everything to do with this.
It's got everything to do with Islam.
I'm simply asking how you're
Okay,
so sure
well,
of the political
I'm on the
motives.
reality. This is the reality. The reality is this is a war. These people are waging war on us for time. This has gone on for 1,400 years. This is nothing new. And the whole time while this goes on, police leaders or political leaders want to invite more. They want to invite more.
the blood is on the hands of people like you and the left.
I saw that video. That was obviously, you could see that was our video that we did with Tommy. I saw that video, and in that moment, I knew that Tommy was of national importance, and I'm in Canada. I knew he was of international importance. I knew the warnings that he was saying from out. He was standing right there at Parliament, because Westminster Bridge, it comes across the Thames, and it comes, Parliament's right on the river. He's standing right there in the heart of London, and he's shouting at the world, wake up. And did you see the smirking? The other journalists, oh, how do you know it's a terrorist attack? Well, what the hell do you think it was? And not only did I love his passion and his courage to lean into the wind, not back, not to be cowed and silenced by the mainstream media. Did you see him download those facts? Boom, 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 boom. How many plots were foiled? How many people downloaded the Al-Qaeda manual in the UK? And that's when I thought, look how articulate he is. Look how passionate he is. Look how factual he is. He's the indispensable man. And that's when we said, Tommy, what are you doing for a living? What are you doing since you left the EDL? You doing home renos or whatever? Stop. You got to be a rebel. You got to get into journalism. And so then I came to the UK, and I stayed in a hotel just across the river. And I met Tommy. And I'm telling you this story because it's a long tangent, but I'm sure you'll appreciate watching that video. Was that not a passionate video? I think that other than the Justice for Chelsea videos, that is the most powerful video Tommy did of his more than 100 videos he did with us. And that video went so viral, not just on YouTube, but on Facebook and on Twitter, and it was pirated so many ways. I think that video was seen 20 million times in every different format in a week. 20 million times. And this goes back to Maajid Nawaz, and this goes back to Nigel Farage. Why was it watched 20 million times? Hey, Hannah, in the last 9 minutes, can we grab the clip of Tommy Robinson on Piers Morgan's show when Tommy holds up the Quran and Piers says, show some damn respect? I'm going to get to that in a minute, but it's the same point. Why did 20 million people watch that clip that I just showed you? Why? Because they were starving for news and opinion and commentary and guidance and analysis, starved for it, because every single one of the 5P professionals had denied them it, including, God bless him, our friend and hero Nigel Farage, for whom we will always be grateful. No one would talk about it. Tommy was the young boy saying the emperor has no clothes. No one else would say that. Everyone would pretend the emperor had clothes. You heard Tommy, and who is he arguing with? He was arguing with other reporters who were so defiant of the facts. You saw that one. How do you know it's a Muslim terrorist? Well, who the hell do you think else it was? Imagine the effort it would take to pretend that was someone else. We're going to get that clip that I just referred to. I'm going to read some super chats first for a second. Epilogue says, exposing the failure of multiculturalism is why the establishment have targeted Tommy. We could be next. Yeah, that's the whole point. If you can throw Tommy in jail, Tommy with such courage and strength and support, you can throw anyone in jail. It's a lesson. It's a warning. Felipe Cespedes, Jesus, God, Christ, bless you, showing love from New York City, USA, Tommy Robinson isn't racist. He is absolutely not racist. And by the way, and this bothers some people on the alt-right, he's a Jew lover. Tommy Robinson is a Philo-Semite. I don't think he knew a single Jew in Luton when he was growing up. I don't think there's a lot of Jews in Luton. Maybe there is. I don't know. He's not racist. He's not anti-Semitic. He has more friends, visible minority skin color, than any liberal I know. It's not racist. Corey Storyman says, if Sheila got arrested on WEM assault, same issue. West Edmonton Mall. So, yeah, you're exactly right. You're talking about Solomon Haj Solomon, the Syrian migrant who was prosecuted for molesting a bunch of girls in West Edmonton Mall. Karsten Wilson, judge said free speech has consequences. True, but not when consequences come from the state. That by definition is the opposite of free speech. Well, but Tommy didn't do anything wrong. I put it to you again, he did not violate the integrity of the trial. He did not break the law in any way. I called for a clip a minute ago. Roll it, please.
Now, if I hold this book up and say there will never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book, is a violent and cursed book. That's
Can
I tell you who said that? Can I tell you who said that? Sir William Gladstone.
You
said
wouldn't do that with
Sir William Gladstone.
Would you do that with
said
the Bible? Show some respect.
Show some respect.
Show some respect.
Have you read this book?
For people.
Have you read this book?
There are over a billion people.
There are 100 verses in this book that incite violence and murder against us.
Show some damn respect for people's religious beliefs, right?
I should show some respect for a book that incites murder against me.
Put it down.
And calls me an animal. No, I won't put it down. Sir William Gladstone held this book above his head in Parliament and he said there will never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book. It's a violent and cursed book. Was Sir William Gladstone, who we have statues across our capital C, was he a bigot or an Islamophobe?
See, now
Winston
you're
Churchill...
sounding like a complete
Winston
lunatic.
Churchill... No, I'm quoting previous some of the best leaders in this country.
You're sounding like
Did you know that that episode of Good Morning Britain was the highest viewed episode ever to air of Good Morning Britain? That's Piers Morgan's show. It's like Good Morning America. It was such a supercharged episode that they blew out the commercials and they blew out a guest. They let that run, if memory serves, 12 minutes, or maybe it was longer. It was riveting TV. Why? Why was that the highest rated show in the history of Piers Morgan? Were they tuning in for Piers Morgan? Well, that's why they came in the first place. But the reason they had a record-setting audience for that show was because of Tommy Robinson. Why? Because for the first time ever, he was saying what no one else would say, could say, should say, was allowed to say. And my God did, and Pierce, by the way, is pretty good on Islam. But like Nigel Farage, he likes to have an arm's length with Tommy. So Tommy was holding that book up. And Pierce said, would you hold the Bible that way? Yeah. Show some damn respect. What? Really? Really, really, really? What does that mean? You can't hold a Quran. Why? Because you're a filthy haram infidel. Pierce was getting scared. He was scared. He was scared, wasn't he? The reason that Tommy connects with people, the reason he connects with me personally across the ocean, the reason that video from him on Westminster Bridge got 20 million views in the week, the reason he had the highest rated appearance on Good Morning Britain in history is because he is filling the gap left by Nigel Farage, left by Piers Morgan. It's 12:57. We don't have a lot of time. Speaking of politicians filling the gap, you know who I interviewed today? And we're going to have the interview on my show, which is 8 p.m. Eastern time. Hey, can we roll a quick clip, just an excerpt of my interview with Gerard Batten, the new leader of UKIP? Take a look.
I think that Tommy Robinson has been sent to prison more for who he is and what he says than his actual offence. And you're quite right. From what I'm told now, the prisons are very much under the sway of Muslim gangs. And we have a phenomenon now in prisons called taking the mat, where non-Muslim prisoners convert to Islam in order to protect themselves. Tommy has been attacked in prison. One of the things that my colleague did, Malcolm Lord Pearson, who's a member of the House of Lords and a UKIP peer, is immediately said that if anything happens to Tommy, if he's murdered or if he is injured in any way, then he would take out a private prosecution against the Home Secretary as an accessory after the act and possibly for negligence in doing his duty to protect prisoners. Now, that was the kind of threat that Pearson made, to know that we're on alert, that if anything happens, there will be a reaction. And I think that will protect Tommy because of the amount, not just that, but the amount of public awareness of him. They will now be, prepared to protect him in prison. Certainly hope so.
That is a 2-minute excerpt from my interview with Gerard Batten. In Canada, we say Gerard, so I'm practicing saying Gerard Batten. He is the new leader of UKIP. I talked to him for, I don't know, about 45 minutes or so. We covered a lot of ground, from Brexit itself to Islam to Nigel Farage to Tommy. So many things. I was planning a 10-minute interview. It turned into close to an hour. We'll have that whole interview on tonight's show. For those of you who don't know, for those of you who just watch our YouTube stuff, we have a paywall show as well. every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's called the Ezra Levant Show. I come on with a produced monologue and interviews and things like that. And we have other shows behind our paywall too, ranging from John Cardillo, our ex-NYPD cop, to Sheila Gunn Reid, David Menzies. We've got a lot of good stuff there, and I encourage you to check it out if you haven't. One quick super chat from Golf and Guns. Denial, deceit, and delusion by the leftist governments and media to the detriment of the citizenry. I think so. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's show. We had a lot of video clips, but I think they all sort of held together, didn't they? And the common theme is Tommy Robinson is the people's answer when the establishment is derelict in their duty. Nigel has done his duty more than most, and Maajid Nawaz is excellent in my view. Piers Morgan is actually not that bad on Islam, but he tries to distance himself from Tommy like Nigel does. The reason why Tommy Robinson is as successful as he is because he is actually serving the interests, contrary to Nigel Farage's statement. People can detect a phony in a second. Tommy Robinson is nothing but authentic. His care for his fellow Brits is deeply authentic. The fact that he keeps paying a price personally, a price to his physical safety, a price for his family, and now 13 months in prison, is the ultimate proof that he is willing to suffer beyond just minor inconveniences to champion a heroic cause. Yeah, I use the word heroic. I'm over time, but I'll just read the last super chat from Arjen Slagboom. From the Netherlands, hear no reports about it. A total silence. Keep up the good work. I will share everything possible. God bless you. Well, thank you. We have a ton of Tommy Robinson content on our website. In fact, I'll encourage our team to repost old videos. I showed a few the other day. I showed one today. They're wonderful. And now that Tommy's in prison for his journalism, I think that's a good opportunity to review the work that made him so popular to begin with. It's already 1:01. I'm a minute past our time. I'll be back here tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern Time. We'll wrap up the week. Maybe we'll move on to other subjects, but if there's more to talk about Tommy, we'll cover it because people care. For those of you who want to tune in for the full interview with Gerard Batten, that'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. To figure out how to log on to that, go to therebel.media/shows. Until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, keep fighting for freedom.